by Clarendon Park Neighbors Association, the Uptown Neighborhood Coalition, and the Uptown Coalition for Responsible Development, who are sponsoring this debate. There are 5 topics: development, crime, the CTA, TIF, and education. I'll read a brief introduction to each of these topics, and then the question. For the audience, the question will also be displayed on the board up here by the window, and Marlise is going to be our Vanna White and point to them at the appropriate time. We will choose out of this high-tech hat, which has been provided, at random, the name of the person who will begin answering in each section, and then go clockwise from that person. Each candidate will have 90 seconds to answer, and again, we will be time limited to be respectful of everyone's participation. So do any of the candidates have any questions about our procedure? Okay, if not, let's begin. The first topic deals with development, and it regards development of the Maryville site. Key components of the Chicago zoning ordinance are designed to protect the character of existing neighborhoods, protect current residents, and maintain orderly and compatible land use development patterns. Currently, the Maryville site is zoned for institutional plan development and RM-5 residential multi-use. This zoning includes wide sidewalks, green space, and building heights that protect and in keeping with the surrounding small-scale residential and business uses. There is a current application to change the zoning to a B3-5 community shopping district, used for large-scale shopping centers, zoning intended for large sites that have primary access to major streets. The city has asked for changes to this application to better fit the neighborhood and park and surrounding smaller street scale. The Maryville site presents an opportunity to create a landmark gateway to the Uptown neighborhood, and it's commonly believed that the city departments and the city council will go along with the alderman's wishes. So, candidates, here is the question. Actually, 3 questions. What would you do to ensure that the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity Maryville presents is not wasted? What is your vision for the development of the Maryville site? And specifically, how would you ensure that real, substantial community involvement is part of the process? So the first person to speak will be Emily Stewart.
Well, first let me say that I'm excited about this opportunity, about what we can do with the Maryville location. I'm a little disappointed with the developer. I don't think that you can tell the community one thing and submit different plans to the city. So I probably would not support the current developer that has planned to develop a large number of buildings on this site. What I do think we need is more affordable housing in the 46th Ward, but mixed income housing. And that's something that I think we can expect on that site. But it's important to get community input, and that's something that I would definitely plan to do. I will have a number of meetings about this site, speak with the residents around that area. I know that there's a lot of concern about the size of the development, but it seems like in order to realistically make it profitable for the developer to develop that particular site, it would have to be a larger development. So I definitely will work with the community, and I look forward to all of your ideas, but I'm not going to work with the particular developer that has already drawn up plans for this site. So let's start from the beginning and move from there. Thank you.
And please
explain where that area is? Yeah. Please.
Montrose and Clarendon.
Thanks.
And following the event, if you want to look, there are drawings and maps
It's
just
the
up there.
plan application drawings from the developer's application.
Mr. Baskin.
Hi, Scott Baskin. There are drawings over there. The project, as Emily said, is on Montrose, sort of just west of Lakeshore Drive. I live not far from there. In my opinion, the project I believe is too big as originally proposed, and you can see on this you can see on the drawings for the piece of property, particularly for the neighborhood. I think it is important. We need to have a project that is in keeping with the neighborhood, and it is critical that the people who live within the area are involved in the project. So as alderman, I would have a lot of public hearings, I would have a lot of community input, and it would be important that we think of this as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I agree. It is sort of the introduction along Montrose into the business corridor, into Broadway. And Broadway is the main business drag in our ward. And right now we have 44 empty storefronts on Broadway. We need an introduction to Broadway that will allow us to develop these 44 empty storefronts on Broadway. We need to develop those. We need to develop those now, as quickly as possible, to provide jobs, to provide services that the ward needs, to provide restaurants, to provide places for all of us to walk to and enhance our quality of life. And this Maryville project is, I think, a critical part of it. We need to make sure it's done right, and we need all of you to participate in it. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm James Kappelman. Two things that underscore any time I make a decision about what's going to be happening in this ward. Number one, I am driven by the use of evidence-based best practices in everything I do, and that includes development. And so whatever happens there, it must be using evidence-based best practices about what will really work there. Number two, we must involve residents in decisions that directly affect them. I want to do this in a way that is going to really represent the community. And the way I want to do that is I'm going to create a ward zoning and development task force made up of all these number of different neighborhood organizations, block clubs, and our chambers, and some advocacy organizations as well. They will send a representative. I will not choose that person. This person will be on the committee, and this person will vote. And it is your job as residents to make sure that person who represents you votes the way you do. No other candidate here has suggested such a plan. I did it when I ran in 2007. I'm doing it again. As far as the current plan, I can tell you right now my own humble opinion is I don't like it for a number of reasons. One, the Open Meetings Act was never followed when this was introduced. And that means there must be adequate notice of a meeting, there must be an agenda, and there must be minutes. We never had that. Thank you.
One of the biggest problems with this is that the people in this community, people who live right there, don't want it the way that it is. I think that as alderman, if I didn't listen to your voice and the thoughts that you had about this project, I wouldn't be doing my job. Going out and meeting the people in these communities, they've said it's too large, it doesn't fit within the neighboring buildings. And that's a large issue. I only live a few blocks from there. One of the major issues also is the large number of cars that will now be in the area. The traffic study that was given to us isn't the same as the project, and the overall project given to the people in this community wasn't the exact same project given to everyone downtown at City Hall. So I would ensure full transparency. No matter what happens with this project, everyone in this community will know where the tax dollars are going to for the project. It's very important to bring in new business, bring in new places to live. This project should come in, but not at the current scope, that it's just too large. And that's coming from the people who live in the neighborhood who have been saying the exact same thing that everyone else is saying. Thank you.
I'll start with how would I ensure a real community process. Several things. One is that as well as having a series of meetings where we do a community-wide survey. Now let's just clarify what community means to me. It doesn't just mean the people that are in those few blocks around that area. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, as is pointed out, so it needs to include the whole uptown area in terms of what people look at, in terms of what people think is needed. I would, definitely nix this plan because I think it was not developed with any kind of real thorough community participation. In terms of what my particular vision is for that site, I think I'm looking at two things, but that's just my one vote, right? One is that I think there's definitely still a need for way more affordable housing in the community, specifically family housing that's affordable to families that are of the income that send their children to the public schools here, 90% of whom are families of four that make, hard-working families of four that make $28,000 a year or less. I think there's a real need to figure out how to do that on the property. My second idea for the other building would be to have some kind of a boutique hotel restaurant. I think we could partner that with a training education program. I'm in the hospitality industry. I've been in a catering company for 14 years, so I think we could partner that with an education program linking Uplift and Truman and towards hospitality. Thank you.
Is that the only industry in America now, sir? Hospitality?
No, it's not.
Hi, I am very familiar with the site because I drive by that location every day. The location is at Montrose and Carradine, just few blocks from the Lecture Drive exit. I think it is a very important question, and the fact that the developer submit the plan without their full consultation with the resident, I think is not democratic, and it has to be reviewed carefully. So my view of what to do with the site is, from my engineering background, I think instead of completely demolish the site, which costs taxpayer millions of dollars, I would suggest to rehab the facility into a world-class school, something like Walter Payton High School. Why we need another school? We have Disney and others in the area. But in the 46th ward, we don't have a world-class school. By building a world-class school, we can attract more residents, more retail, more tax dollars, and then when we have more tax dollar, more business, the crimes would go down and the jobs would go up. So I think we need to think outside of the box about demolishing it, giving it to my buddies to, get a job, and that kind of thinking has to be changed. That's my opinion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, there are obvious advantages and disadvantages to the plans that have been suggested. I mean, obviously we need increased retail space in the neighborhood, even with open retail space that we currently have on Broadway. I think that a plan like this that would bring development in people in from the lakefront would be great. And we have this entire lakefront corridor where we don't have retail, and I think as a result, people are just very accustomed of going to other neighborhoods to get the products and services that they need. That said, the community involvement really is key, and I am very suspicious of working with any developer who has had so many incongruencies between what is presented to us, the community, and what is presented to the city. I think that we do need to start over. We need to come up with a plan as a community. There needs to be a community survey, what we actually want on that site. My vision for the site is important, but it is not. I am one vote of many, even as alderman. In my opinion, I think that we would benefit from having a model like the Center on Halsted, in other parts of the ward, in the 44th ward, where you have, a building that includes retail space, also has community space. But, I mean, again, my opinion is one of many. I definitely think we need more input on this issue from the community at large, and I think that, we need to work with someone who has accountability and transparency and community interest in mind over just, taking our tax dollars and making a quick buck. Thank you.
I will be a pro-development alderman, but the development has to be sensitive to the neighborhood. I believe I was probably one of the first candidates against this project from early on. Against it because of traffic, parking, and the infrastructure in this area is 100